honor Professor Iwan's contribution. Before that, however, I would like to invite Professor Erik Thorbecke, who was Professor Iwan's teacher and is his colleague and friend at Cornell University, and Professor Pangestu, who is Professor Iwan colleague and friend for a long time at the University of Indonesia, to share their impression of Professor Iwan and introduce Professor Iwan. Now, without further ado, Erik, the Zoom room is now for you for maximum 10 minutes to introduce and provide your impression toward Professor Iwan.
Thank you very much. And I would like in the few minutes that I have to say something about my professional and personal interaction with Iwan over, I think, half a century, if I remember correctly. Recently, I read a review which mentioned, and I quote, "the wonderfully accidental nature of luck when people lives intersect for a whole swath of unlikely but cherishable reasons." And when I read this, I immediately thought that fits my interaction with Iwan. So let me briefly pass in review our interaction. I first met Iwan when he enrolled in a course that I was teaching at Cornell on the social accounting matrix. And Iwan was immediately captivated by it and used it for a long time as his major working tool. And I remember one time in class, I mentioned that I had to go to Indonesia. At that time, I had a big project with the Central Bureau for the Statistic. We had a group of experts teaching the Indonesian statisticians about the SAM. And I had to reschedule my class. And so Iwan, at the end of the class, said, "You're going to Indonesia?" I said, "Yes." "Then you absolutely have to meet my parents." And I said, "I'm only going to go there for 3 days. I'm sorry, but I just will not have the time." And I felt bad about it, but I didn't have any choice. And to my great surprise, when I arrived in Jakarta, I went into my room and the phone rang and his mother called me. And evidently she had come all the way from Surabaya to meet me. And she said, "Would you at least have time for a cup of tea?" Well, of course I did. So I went down and I met her and her husband. And I was so impressed by the charm and the erudition. And we spoke in Dutch. She was probably the last generation of Indonesian who had been taught Dutch. And really, we had a wonderful time. And so, notwithstanding my resistance, she convinced me to take a short trip of Indonesia, and it was a real success, and it was a beginning of a deep friendship. Subsequently, there were a number of events and points when our lives, my life and Iwan's, intersected. And I can only mention a few here. At one time, Iwan was on a lake in a boat, and he lost his camera, lost his footing, fell in the lake. Fortunately, a colleague saved him, And so my dear wife, Charla, said, well, you absolutely have to learn to swim. So at the next visit in Jakarta, they went to a swimming pool, and she tried to teach him to swim. And she said, this is my first lesson, but now you have to find a nice young lady who can teach you more. And this is where Irina got into the picture. And she taught him not only to swim, but I'm sure that she taught him many wonderful things as well. So this was one of the intersections of our lives. I was also, just coincidentally, I arrived in Ithaca exactly the days where both of his children, Mirko and Mariko, were born. And very sadly, I arrived exactly the day when his father sadly passed away. So, so many points of intersection. Another very interesting point of intersection, we share the same birthday, February 17th. So it was very clear from the beginning that there was something here, call it maybe destiny, that would bring us together. So now to the professional side. While Iwan was at Cornell, I was working, as I said, with the CBS and also with the OECD Development Center on a book which was called Adjustment and Equity in Indonesia. And it was built on a large-scale SAM. I think at that time it was probably the largest SAM in the world. And it was used to simulate different policies. And basically what we showed in the book was that adjustment could have taken place in Indonesia in a much better way, much less flawed way, much less destructive way than it actually did. And I remember that when Iwan realized this and looked at the model, he immediately copied it into his computer, and he started working with this. And we were invited later on by the World Bank and by IFPRI to use our new model to essentially look at what happened in Indonesia after the 1997 financial crisis. And what we showed was that the actual IMF policies had very, very serious negative consequences on the welfare of the economy, and that an alternative set of policies could have been much less costly in terms of poverty, in terms of what it did to the economy. And I remember very well at that time the managing director or at least the chief economist, was Anne Kruger. And we had been very good friends beforehand. And afterwards, she wouldn't give me the time of day. But this is the price that you pay sometimes for doing things that people don't like. So in conclusion, what I would say is that what I mentioned at the outset about the wonderfully accidental nature of luck when people's lives intersect really applies to our relationship. And perhaps it was not luck, but destiny. So, Iwan, we wish you the very, very best in the rest of your career.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for sharing some of the stories that a lot of us do not know. And the same and the literature that you mentioned, the historical background of this literature, many of us grew up with that literature actually. Thank you again, Eric. Now I hand over the Zoom room to Ibu Mbak Mary, please.
Hello, everyone. And of course, first of all, congratulations to Iwan. I think we were trying to keep this as a surprise, but it didn't work out. But this is this book that we're launching today is in celebration of your 7 decades. I know you said you didn't want to be reminded how old you were, but they have been incredible 7 decades, and I'm happy to have shared, I think, about 4 decades out of your 7 decades together with you. And if Erik said that it was destiny, I think I should say I'm very lucky to have met you as soon as I have finished my PhD coming back to Indonesia. And even before I had finished, I had asked the faculty whether I could come and join the faculty as a lecturer. And you welcomed me with very warmly, and I'm always grateful that the start of my academic career in Indonesia was meeting you, and in a way being guided with you, because I had no clue actually how to function in an Indonesian academic institution. But I think you really warmly welcomed me and asked me to start teaching the international economics stream. And you'd be happy to know that I'm back now teaching the international economics stream. And some things don't change, I guess. And it was an exciting time to work with you, Iwan, at the time, because I think we were like-minded in the pursuit of good teaching and research in economics. And really, I think we worked hard to upgrade many of the teaching quality as well as the research that we could do together. I just wanted to share 3 things about the Iwan I know and have worked with for almost 4 decades of collaboration and friendship. So first of all, I think is his role in capacity building, which is something which is also very close to my heart. And a few memorable things that we did together, I think has had lasting legacy. At least I like to believe it has had lasting legacy. First was our role as docent terbang. I don't know whether you remember this, Iwan, or flying lecturers. We were at that time doing capacity building from UI to other universities. So we would go to different universities like Erlangga in Surabaya and meet the faculty, share our thoughts, and then give some lectures as we went there. And I remember on one of our trips to Surabaya, because Erik mentioned your mother, we also went to your house in Surabaya, and was incredible to meet your mother, a beautiful, elegant lady, and with all that beautiful artwork in the house. So I'm grateful that you had introduced me also to your mother. And then, of course, our second adventure in capacity building was the IUC, or the Inter-University Center, which up to today, I keep on telling the World Bank they should do it again. It was an incredible program where, the World Bank provided scholarships. And for us at the IUC in economics, there were IUCs in other fields, that we could send PhD students abroad. And, I was lucky that you invited me to come and because it was a huge experience, learning experience, and it was a way also to learn about the different levels of academic institutions in Indonesia, and what we needed to do to improve it. And I think we came up with a very simple formula. If you remember, if they get accepted into the 40 top universities and they pass their TOEFL, that was the first screening. And then we would be able to send them abroad. So I think we sent probably 40, 50 students on this program. with PhDs and masters, and it was in economics and business. And of course, one of our most illustrious economists that went on this program was Sri Mulyani Indrawati, and there were many others who really, I think, enriched the institutions that they ended up building. And then we also realized that there was a shortcoming in the program because it really in a way discriminated a lot of the regional universities that could not didn't have the capacity to get accepted into the top 40 universities. So we came up with a really, what I think was a really good program, where we came up with inviting professors from abroad as well as our own professors, where we did short courses, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, where we would do the basic economics, the basic quantitative methods and upgrading programs in economic disciplines that involve all the regional universities. So they would, the thought was that they could then potentially also be able to apply to the universities abroad. And if they couldn't get accepted, they would still benefit from that capacity building. And I think from that program, we also did collaborations in research with regional universities. And some elements of that program, I think, still exist today. So I really would like to thank you that we did this program, and I think we can see the legacy continuing. And of course, you continue now. And so I really think you're a wonderful teacher in all respects. You continue to teach. There are many students that you have nurtured over the years, and you still continue to teach at the University of Indonesia today, teaching 3 courses and coming to Indonesia 6 months, 5 months of the year, including your incredible work with BI Institute. And I think you really sound very excited and passionate when you tell me about your visits to the field and to the region. So this is the second thing that I would say about you, is that your brilliant mind and your ability to continue to evolve in knowledge, methodology, and insights to follow major shifts in thinking. And you're just well-grounded as an economist, as a regional science specialist, and your quantitative and modeling capability. But at the same time, I think I've also seen you grow into understanding more macro, your time at the ADB, and more policy-oriented. And so I think your brilliant mind and your ability to absorb and your ability to see the insights that many of us sometimes don't see. I've always marveled at how insightful you have been. And I think also your ability to speak to the truth, even if I think Erik also just mentioned that, even if you don't want to hear the truth, right? And your ability to speak to the truth, I think, is also something I also admire about you. And of course, we have also been participating in many international conferences together, such as our time at the Pacific Economic Cooperation Council, where you did the work between 1991 to 2003. You were responsible for the projections of the Indonesian economy in the State of Region publication, and I was involved on all the international trade work. And finally, of course, Iwan, the person and the friend, true friend that you are to me. I don't know how many times we've had together, whether it's just eating, having dinner, or playing tennis. Iwan and I used to play tennis until I think he told me I injured you. Didn't I? You tell me that you stopped playing because you fell down the last time we played together. But we played many tennis games together. And he's always playing the music. He's also a Renaissance man. He can play music without reading notes, and it's always his favorite is always Chopin. And this is something that's so wonderful about Iwan. I always admired that. And we went through. We met when we were both single, and then we went through seeing each other get married and having children. I still recall Mirko as a baby in your Kertosono house. And your Kertosono house is really full of memories for me. The many meetings we've had, whether it's dinner or whether it's serious economic discussions. So let me just close by saying you are a really brilliant person. You can be very demanding, but demanding for high quality and outcomes. But at the end of the day, you are a really true friend. And I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed and continue to cross for the foreseeable future. And to my dear friend and often partner in crime, for the good of economics and economists in Indonesia and the region, this is a very belated 70th celebration. And since 70 is the new 60, we expect many, many more years of productive output delivered with passion from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bu Mary, for sharing all this experience. And they are all important, particularly for us, the younger generation, to learn about what happened. Thank you very much. I was informed that Professor Emil Salim has joined our panel. And so I would like also to invite Professor Emil Salim to express his thought about Iwan, Prof. Iwan, if possible. Lydia, could you assist that Professor Emil Salim could be in the spot? Thank you.
Apologies, but it doesn't seem that Pak Emil has turned on the video.
All right.
Probably Ibu Amelia, if you are there, Pak Emil can turn on the video. Maybe we can just move ahead.
All right. We will come back to Prof. Emil after we work with this technical issue. So before we continue our program with a session discussing 3 papers written by Prof. Iwan's former student, let me introduce the moderator of the session, Dr. Nur Ain Shahrir. Lid, could you put Nur Ain in the spot? Yeah. Nur Ain, a bit background about Nur Ain. Nur Ain received her PhD degree in regional science from Cornell University under the supervision of Prof. Iwan. She is currently an assistant professor at the Sunway University Business School in Malaysia and a research fellow of the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies. Nur, without further ado, the Zoom room is now yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Budy. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone. Good night, whichever part of the world you are. So before we proceed with the 3 presentations today, let me just remind all the presenters that you have 20 minutes for your presentations. And to the audience, please submit your questions in the Q&A box. So since we have limited time here, let's just proceed with our first presentations by Professor Ari Kuncoro. So Professor Ari Kuncoro is a professor of economics at Universitas Indonesia. He was a student of Professor Iwan during his undergraduate program at Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Indonesia, which he completed in 1986. He is currently director of Universitas Indonesia, and previously he was the dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Indonesia for 2 periods, 2013 to 2017 and 2017 to 2019. So he received his PhD in economics from Brown University. So without further ado, the Zoom platform is yours, Prof. Ari.
Thank you for the kind introduction. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Prof. Iwan for 70th birthday. So I'm going to look back with my introduction with Professor Iwan somewhere in 1983 in 1984. So in one afternoon in 1983, I got notification from Student Bureau of Faculty of Economics that Prof. Iwan was assigned, or I was assigned to Professor Iwan. So Professor Iwan became my academic advisor. And then time move on, I joined his team as research assistant. And then, as Prof. Mary said, that Prof. Iwan then become the chairman of University Center at Faculty of Economy. And I was one of the lucky one to be sent to 40 top university abroad. I repeat again, 40 university abroad. At the time, I didn't understand what the meaning of top 40. I think that is between heaven and earth. Why? Because the level of mathematics instruction at that university, actually, I don't know. I cannot say it in the word. So we went together to the US, Sri Mulyani, me, and others. And our primary purpose in the first year and the second year was just to survive. And luckily, we survived. If not, then I might not be able to be here with this event for Prof. Iwan. So let's go with my paper. So somewhere last year, I was notified by Pak Budy about the book plan to honor Prof. Iwan for his 70th birthday. So he said that, okay, your job is to write something about manufacturing. So here it is. Yes, I try to find the current issues in manufacturing sector. Next. So let's take a look at some studies of the manufacturing sector. Next. So it is very interesting about the manufacturing sector. Indonesia has perhaps one of the best data for manufacturing sector. But if we look in 1980s, 1990s, there were very few studies that use the data. So what we have is actually analyzed more at the macro level of industry level. So there were some study that very important, actually describing what Indonesia had in the earlier year, particularly of the Suharto era in 1975. First paper by Professor Holhill, or Orthodoxy Vindicated, that is about industrial policy, moving between intervention, deregulation, intervention, deregulation, and so forth. And then changing between inward and outward looking by myself and Professor Budy. And then in 2015, this is hovering between pragmatism and nationalism. Yeah, that is perhaps the start of the national content program, as well as the downstreaming program. But what is interesting is that the planning document or the official document may be different compared to what we observe in the data. So even though the regulation appear to be very restrictive, but if we look at the more micro level, it appears that firm, small, medium, and large, have the way to circumvent or to avoid that regulation, not necessarily in terms of illegal one, but by doing things smartly. Yeah. Then this is my impression that manufacturing firm in Indonesia, they definitely are not passive player. They are quite smart. So they have reaction function. They react to the government policy and take advantage. Okay, next. So if you look back in 1970 to 1980s, we have regulation, but not law, set by Ministry of Industry based on strategic importance. And then we have the period of the oil boom, and the government used the money to develop upstream industry and manufacturing. And that time, the role of state-owned enterprise, like Krakatau Steel and others, become very important, particularly in base metals, petrochemicals, and automotive. I think this was the start of the concept local content. But behind that, there have been there had been a complex investment approval and licensing process. And then import facilities, they're all regulated. But in 1986, because the fall of oil price, the government announced regulation primarily for manufacturing. So to move the dependence on oil to non-oil sector. So things become more complicated because sometimes government move back to more restrictive regulation, sometimes going back to little bit loose regulation, and the impact is probably make the interpretation of manufacturing data a little bit more complex. Yeah. Next. So I looked at 2007, the most recent data one. There was a law, number 27. Next. Yeah. Next slide, please. Law number 27, 2007, on long-term development plan for the period 2005 to 2025, RP and GP. So the vision are very clear, industrial sector as engine of our growth. And then the term of efficiency also appear, improving efficiency, modernization, and value added in the modern sector, including mining, to promote competitiveness. So we can emphasize the word mining related to what happened in the recent days about the mining sector. And then we talk about also small, medium enterprise, primarily integration of SME into the value chains. And then value chain development through product processing, diversification, structural deepening, and vertical integration. So hilirisasi, downstreaming optimization started to be mentioned. That's not to be trapped in the low value added global value chain. But the law is actually at some progress over the old regulation. They started to mention inter-industrialization with supporting industry and complementary industry. So no longer simply sectoral, but inter-industry. And then they also recognize institutional issues such as reducing the burden of regulation, as well as infrastructure issues like port, road, railway, and so on and so forth. Next. So what I did in this paper actually to look back on what I have mentioned in the introduction. So I use the manufacturing sector, and with redefinition of the size based on the number of workers in establishment. Small is defined as less than 100 workers, medium between 100 to 500 workers, and the rest more than 5 workers are included, categorized as large. Next. So what we found here, I'm going directly to the result, is that size composition is moving toward the medium size. So I try to interpret this with some hypotheses that the firms are really smart. If they face increasing burden of regulation, they will try to find what kind of optimal size If you are small, you may have difficulty to qualify for law. If you are too large, then you might be the target of the regulation itself. Okay. So what is in between small and large? The answer is medium one. That's why more and more medium firm actually enter in period 2014 to 2019. Yeah. Next. If we look at value-added composition, we also see similar things, namely increasing share of small and medium categories. The large category, interestingly, has been declining since 2014, replaced by the increased share of the medium and small. How we can interpret this? Of course, we need more data, new data from manufacturing sector, in demonstration data, and my data and ended in 2019. So best it is can be said as early prognosis of the what has been happening in the manufacturing sector. Next. Okay, next. So there are some points. You have restrictive regulation, burden of regulation. But if you look in the field, the regulation might not be binding. Why? Because the interpretation at the lower level of bureaucracy and the enforcement may be looser than what we observe at the top. Yeah. And also, the aura of the regulation era from 1986 is still echoing in the mind of entrepreneurs. So every time the government put more restrictive regulation, there are almost always representative from Kajian, from small firm association that actually voice their opposition to more restrictive regulation. So in a way, that make the trade regime is actually a little bit open, yeah, which enable them to acquire imported input. This is very important, imported input. Why? Because in order to improve the quality of the product, some imported input are necessary. Sure, they can use domestic input for the product, but when they go to the export market and they have to sell it in the outlet in the US, in Japan, in Europe, and elsewhere, they might meet with the quality criteria. Yeah. So the policy in the United States actually still has some lingering effect right down to 2014, 2019. So this policy impact outlived the Suharto administration and de facto remains in the place, despite successful government introducing first policy of domestic content scheme. That is what I also to give comment on domestic content scheme. It appears very restrictive, but for medium firm, actually, they can divide it up their operation and put it in the smaller business or small firm. In a way, smaller firm can do the importation and do some improvisation or product improvement that can be counted as domestic value added and then shipped back to the parent company. That's why that might explain why the share of medium and small firm in terms of value added, actually increasing along with their number, because it is their optimal strategy to react with the situation where the district policy going back and forth between incentive, taxation policy, and so on. Also, many foreign direct investment, they also establish they're supporting Indonesia. Of course, they can invite the supplier from their home country, but in several cases, it's more efficient if they provide some technical assistance to small Indian firm and to act as their supplier. In this way, they're nurturing the capability of domestic firm. But if we look at the statistical evidence automatically, the linkage between small medium firm as well as large one is still statistically weak, not at the 5% confidence level, but definitely not zero. And I think the strength of the urbanization economies, I'm talking about the rise of the secondary city like Semarang, Jogja, and Surabaya, and others, and the rise of middle class in those cities actually provide a market for domestic manufacturing. I give you one example, is that for women bag or women purse.
Pak Ari, sorry, you have 5 minutes
Yes.
left, yeah?
Oh.
You have 5 minutes left.
Okay. So in a way, this provides a buffer in the case that regulation burden actually increase the cost. Yes, you have increasing costs, but at the same time, you have market that actually eager to buy the new product, and it's very clear from the in the period after the COVID, where the business of the online manufacturing, particularly for those related to jewelry, bag, and as well as food, actually booming. And this also coincident with the fact that the transportation between cities in Indonesia, especially in Java, improved because the presence of toll road. So they can look at what happened at the factory level. So first they buy online, and then, okay, I like to go to Klaten, for example. I want to know how this bag produced. And then go to Klaten, for example, and the customer found out that the distribution of the manufacturing work actually spread all over the village. Yeah. Yeah. This is also true for export. There are firms that actually collect production from the village, small firm, and the medium firm actually act as the quality monitoring, and then providing technical assistance as well as material for critical essential imported input, for example, leather. Okay, I like to go to picture Kabupaten Klaten. Okay, I'm going to give you example of more. More, yeah. Next. Okay. So narrowing the gap. Next. Yeah. No, nothing. Yes, this one. Combining online and offline businesses. This is the phenomenon after the COVID-19. And this explains why the importation of input is still important, because now Indonesia has the middle class and they are very picky in terms of quality. And we also give rise to several production centers in the countryside, like in Klaten, in Boyolali, in Magelang, and near Malang. Yeah. This is good news. So here is my final word. When I met Professor Iwan sometime in 1984, then he suggested to me to write something for my undergraduate thesis, something that more durable. And then I asked him back, what do you mean with durable? Something that are out of the box, beyond the data, and perhaps it will happen sometime in the future. But if you look at the data, you can offer maybe some kind of early indicator may be present right now that other people have difficulty to observe. Thank you. This is my congratulations again to Prof. Iwan. Thank you for.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ari. That was a wonderful presentations about the increasing share of the middle class, middle income from, from many decades ago as a result of the continuations of the policies. And you are right, like when we are under the supervisions of Prof. Iwan, he always remind us to do something that is out of the box. In my case, I remember like one of the advice that he gave to me, if you don't know what is behind the door, then you go behind the door. So that was one of the advice that I remember until now. So nevertheless, we'll proceed to the second presentations, and to remind to all the audience, if you have any questions, please drop your questions in the Q&A box. Our next presentation is Professor Yuri Mansury. So Professor Yuri Mansury is an associate professor at Illinois Institute of Technology. He is trained as a regional scientist and currently teaches urban planning analysis. His current areas of research are in the...
I'm very sorry, I got thrown out of the internet.
Okay. We're proceeding now with the second presenter, Prof. Yuri. So his current research is economics of technology and innovation, computational modeling of urban systems, spatial networks, disaster impact analysis, and unbalanced regional development. So he completed a degree in metallurgical engineering from Universitas Indonesia before going on to get his PhD in regional economics at Cornell University under the supervisions of Prof. Iwan as well. So Prof. Yuri, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Noor, for the introduction. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is going to be a very different flavor from Professor Ari's presentation. I'll get right to the backstory of my presentation here, which is on addressing the challenges of corruption in Indonesia. So the backstory here is the report of the Berlin-based Transparency International, or TI, which ranked Indonesia essentially dead last, 41st out of the 41 countries surveyed in its debut Corruption Perception Index back in 1995. The index evaluates how corruption impacts a country's commercial life from the lens of foreign observers. And I must note here that a lower score indicates a higher level of corruption. So in the more recent 2021 TI ranking, Indonesia had a lower level of corruption than, for example, the Philippines, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. So that was a pretty good performance. However, according to the latest report, also by TI, the perception index suggests that Indonesia remains below the median among 180 countries, surveyed in the latest report. So with a score below 50, which is the threshold for serious corruption issues, it is fair to say that the world's fourth most populous country has continued to struggle with addressing corruption or graft. So according to the Corruption Eradication Commission, known as KPK in Indonesia, the economic losses from corruption in Indonesia in this period between 2004 and 2011 totaled almost $4 billion US dollars. So that loss was equivalent to the cost of providing free primary education to 68 million school-age children, or covering the cost of 393,000 new housing units. Additionally, KPK reported that convicted public officials had cost the country around 15 billion US dollars. So the magnitude of the losses highlights corruption as one of the most formidable challenges to Indonesia's growth. And one reason, according to many commentators and observers, including Hal Hill, describing Indonesia as a high-cost economy. Iwan Azis has also contributed to this literature on corruption in Indonesia. So this is from his 1999 work, where he noted that despite policy reforms in the 1980s, which aim at enlarging or expanding the private sector's role, the Indonesian government's influence remained pervasive. And according to Thorbecke, privatization proceeded through an untransparent process where state companies were sold to favored buyers. So this is one quote from Aziz' 1999 paper saying that the woeful practice of corruption, cronyism, and nepotism, CCN, also known as a KKN in Indonesia, had become widespread. So in the context of the 2001 decentralization, where the goal was to give more power to the regional governments, including municipalities to be more responsive to local needs. Nevertheless, despite the efforts, socioeconomic conditions in the Indonesian regions and provinces did not seem to improve. So this led to the notion of local capture, a phrase that I learned from Professor Azis' paper published in 2008. And I think it's just worth spending 1 minute here because I learned all of this through osmosis with Professor Azis when I was returning from Korea in 2010 to join the faculty at Cornell University. I hadn't fully settled yet. I didn't have any furniture in my house at that time. So I went to Professor Aziz's house often, and Mbak Erina, who is Professor Iwan's wife, would feed me, lunch, occasionally dinner. So from our interactions at that time, I learned about the current state of the Indonesian economy. I wasn't exactly plugged into the Indonesian studies literature, having toiled in theoretical regional science at that point. So I am really grateful to Professor Aziz for allowing me, to reintegrate into the Indonesian studies community. So this book provides an opportunity for me, to honor Professor Iwan, and the research question is motivated by our conversation, 14 years ago. I don't know if Professor Iwan still remembers this, but the particular question that I'm addressing in this contribution is whether higher probability of arrest would actually decrease corruption rate. So the seminal contribution here is by the Nobel Prize winner Gary Becker, that was published in the Journal of Political Economy, 1968. More recently, it has been corroborated by experimental results, including from Ben Alkin, 2007 JPE as well, who demonstrated that increased government audits could actually reduce funding misappropriation. So taken together, these findings suggest that intensified scrutiny through frequent audits would effectively deter corruption. At least that's the theoretical production. prediction. What I would like to accomplish in this modest contribution is to the theoretical literature, because the majority of the existing studies in this area around corruption and corruption in Indonesia is primarily empirical, using econometrics, case studies, and some using randomized control trial, but very little in terms of theoretical contribution. So my theoretical model, also known as agent-based model, as I will show, establish an inverse relationship between corruption and the probability of detection as predicted by the classical model of Becker and Stigler. However, I will show that this holds only when the probability of detection is relatively low. So what is my agent-based model, at least the one that I developed for this study? It combines both aspects of neoclassical economy or economics in terms of welfare maximizing. Agents do compare the expected utility of corruption versus compliance. So there's that element of rational expectation there, but also some aspect of a bounded rationality where agents make decisions based on incomplete information. So there's a few schools of thought that I sort of combined in this study, including a complex system approach, which is appropriate to study emergent behavior in the context of a decentralized system. And I will have more to say about that in the next slide. I would also employ a computer simulation approach. So it's a numerical approach as opposed to econometric or purely mathematical approach, allowing me to explore interaction within a diverse population in a dynamic environment, while at the same time incorporating the spatial-temporal aspect of a real social world, which is obviously important for us regional scientists. And the focus on decision-making, agent-based model emphasizes role-based decision-making at the individual level. This is, almost a definition of an agent-based model. Instead of decision-making at the higher level of aggregation, like in the typical macroeconomic models. So the intellectual roots of agent-based models can be traced to that approach, utilizing computers to simulate social phenomena within a virtual environment where social actors interact. And the goal here is to explain emergence. What is emergent behavior in the context of a complex system? It refers to a coherent structure arising at the macro level. Okay, so higher level of aggregation like a society, or at the regional level, that arises from the simple behavior of the individual components making up the system. Okay, so according to another Nobel Prize winner, Tom Schelling, this is the seminal 1978 paper. There are some examples of emergence in the context of socioeconomic domain or systems, including the famous neighborhood segregation model that he proposed in 1971. Agent-based models are most suitable to address complex questions where mathematical theorems alone, about the causal relationships in the model may not be able to offer closed-form solutions or any solutions at all. So, in those cases, simulation or numerical approach is the only alternative, to study this complex dynamics and come up with, some answers. There's a long history of agent-based modeling, at least in terms of the philosophical approach in regional science as well. The notion that self-organizing structures like agglomeration economies, for example, obviously central in regional science, are best understood through the lens of autonomous agents have been around for a while. There's a famous 1970 paper by Hagerstrand, published in Papers in Regional Science. But only very recently, because of advances in computing power, and software modeling tools, that makes it feasible to implement large-scale systems with thousands or even millions of agents with diverse populations, in a coherent framework. The agent-based model I developed belongs to the class of a generative social science, and the goal of generative social science is to demonstrate that simple rules, so this is the specification of the individual components or agents, are adequate or sufficient, to produce a complex global phenomenon. Okay, so think about agglomeration economies, how we can actually grow or generate agglomeration economies, through a very simple description of the agent behavior. That kind of a research belongs to the domain of a complex system research. So more specifically, my agent-based model of corruption builds on another model, L4 model by Brian Arthur, which is considered to be first-generation core agent-based model in economics. And in this particular model, every agent is endowed with multiple strategies to make decisions, under imperfect information. Each strategy employs estimation tools. So there is an element of a prediction here in order to predict the present state of the world. Again, because agents are operating under the condition of imperfect information. So they have to make the prediction about the state of the real world because the true state is only revealed in the following period. So Arthur demonstrated that even without explicit coordination or top-down equilibrium conditions, so there's no equality between supply and demand in this particular class of models, nevertheless, the system can still reach and achieve a stable outcome over time, even though it's not necessarily singular equilibrium. It can also be multiple equilibria, or a system of oscillating dynamics over time. But we can still see there is a pattern emerging, in these simulation models. So I'm only going to show one equation here, which refers to the algorithm used by agents to predict the current number of arrests or the number of agents arrested, for corruption in my model. And that prediction is basically an extrapolation based on information, how many agents were arrested in the previous period. So because agents don't have information about the true probability of arrest, and this is actually the only unknown in the model. This is we can think of it as a policy parameter by the internal review service at the IRS in the US or the internal review audit in Indonesia. That probability is not known in this system, and so agents must extrapolate based on existing information, what is the true probability of getting arrested should they decide to commit corruption or engage in illegal activities. Okay, so there is definitely an element of very basic machine learning algorithm, but nevertheless it's a recognized element of artificial intelligence. we can think about more sophisticated machine learning methods. I'm not going to get into that in this presentation, but we could, consider that for future research. Okay, so some result here. When the system is configured with very low probability of getting arrested. So I would like to draw your attention, to the first and the last columns here, which are probably the most important columns in this presentation. The probability arrest, prop arrest refers to the true probability of getting arrested, for engaging in corruption. That probability is unknown to agents in the system. So, 0.1 means that there is a 10% probability for an agent to be arrested if the agent decides, to break the law by taking bribery or things of that nature. Okay, and as you can see from the last column, given that the true probability of arrest is 0.1, using the prediction algorithm, agents actually get very close, to the true probability of getting arrested. In this case, 0.09. So that's subject to rounding error, but essentially, 0.1. Agents are able to make a prediction very accurately based on previous information, even in the absence of the true probability of getting arrested. But this is only true when the probability of getting arrested is very low, below 0.5. So as you go down the table here, as you can see, when probability of getting arrested, probability of getting caught is increased from 0.1 to 0.4, for example, then the percentage of corrupt agents is the second column that I'm pointing to here, would decrease from 91% to 71%. So obviously, this is a very stark and simple model, doesn't capture all aspects of a reality, but nevertheless highlights, the prediction of the classical view of Gary Becker and Joe Stigler, which advises, more severe punishment is good in a sense that it would be a deterrent factor, discouraging people, from engaging in illegal behavior, accepting bribery, or things of that nature. So I might add that is only true when the probability of getting arrested is low enough. 5 minutes, right?
So, Yuri, you have about 4 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to just jump to my sort of a punchline here. When the probability of getting arrested is sufficiently high, and that actually starts around 0.5, meaning there is a 50-50 probability, 50-50 chance of getting arrested when agents, engage in a fraudulent activity, then basically the whole system goes into this chaotic outcome where the degree of corruption fluctuate, from a state where no one engages in corruption and the state where everyone participates in bribery, accepts of bribery. Okay, so this is what I call the unstable pattern of oscillation, going from one extreme where no one is participating in illegal activities to another extreme where everyone is corrupt. Okay, again, this is a theoretical prediction, whose empirical evidence remains to be determined when the data become available. So this is the notion of phase transition in a complex system that I'm not going to belabor in the interest of time. But in summary, that a classical view of Becker and Stigler only holds, as long as the probability of getting arrested, is sufficiently low, or the arrest probabilities are minimal. But when the probability of getting arrested exceeds a certain threshold, and then the system begins to oscillate that fluctuation again between the two extremes where no one is corrupt, to the another extreme where everyone is engaging in bribery. This is my last slide here. What I'm going to highlight here is the need for transparency, and this might appear to or may sound to be a cliche, but nevertheless, in the context of my model, it is worth emphasizing the importance of transparency in terms of making it known to everyone. What is the probabilities of getting audited? So in the US, you can go to the IRS website, again, the Internal Review Service website, and find out what is the probability of getting audited. That information is currently not available, from the Indonesian policymakers. And one policy implication, from my research, is to increase transparency, including to inform our stakeholders what is actually the probability of getting arrested, among other things. I will stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Yuri. You are about 10 seconds away from the time's up. Good. And it was wonderful presentations, very bold on the topic that are very prevalent to many Southeast Asia countries. Let's move on to our third presenter. Professor Nattapong Puttanapong. He is an associate professor at the Faculty of Economics, Thammasat University. He completed his PhD in regional economics at Cornell University, where Prof. Iwan was his supervisor. His main area of research are interest rates, economic modeling, environmental economics, and international trade. So, Nat, the Zoom floor is yours. You have 20 minutes to present. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And actually, I co-wrote this chapter with Dr. Kanit, and Dr. Kanit was Professor Azis' colleague at ADBI. So actually, Dr. Kanit recorded the video, and he also in this room. So first, I would like to play the video first, and Dr. Kanit can add more information if you prefer.
Hello, everyone. Professor Iwan Azis, a distinguished scholar, gather here today. My name is Kanit. I'm friends of Iwan Azis. I still remember the first time we met in Tokyo. At that time, around the early of the year 2000s, and we helped Dr. Yoshitomi of ADB Institute to find the explanations of Asian financial crisis. We called Tom Yam Goong at that time. And we proposed the regional financial arrangement to ASEAN Plus 3 Forum through the ADB Institute of Tokyo. I believe that our work, Iwan, has been working well. It's led to the expansions of CMI bilateral swap arrangement and also the creation of the Asia bond market, which I believe that helped to reduce global impact of the global financial crisis, hamburger crisis, and currently too high U.S. Fed fund rate that create financial turbulence in Asia. However, I have to tell everyone that myself, and Dr. Iwan Azis share the same belief that in economic development, the financial sector development alone, nor neoclassical market creating mechanism, cannot trust the real development. But the real sector development and creation of the economic ecological system of infrastructures, absorbing or creating new technology investment, supporting human resources in the right direction, and lay out the good institutional factors, law, regulation, and everything are more essential to create the well-being of the real people. In the book, Dr. Nattapong, Iwan Azis' student, has put Iwan Azis' belief and our belief and Iwan Azis' CGE type model to explore my 6 years of actual work in creating the new growth center in Thailand named Eastern Economic Corridor, a special development zone in Thailand. We did a lot of investment, we did a lot of technology, we did a lot of human resources training, and the result come out. This is supported by our core value in attempt to convince academic people, policymakers, and people in general that we can do the right policy, and the right policy do matter to create the economic well-being. But one thing crucially is that you have to know how to do. This study led by Dr. Nat and me in the chapter 11 named Impact Analysis of the Economic Eastern Corridor on the Thai Economy, and application of multi-regional input-output model and dynamic CGE model. We have two conclusions. The first one is the spatial impact of investment in EEC can be induced intra-regional and cross-regional impact. So to speak, EEC investment and EEC transformation provide a positive impact to other related regions as well, not only in EEC. The second one is that by using the dynamic CGE model, Professor Azis type we found that the dynamic impact in the next 20 years, the simulation results show that the investment would lead to a new higher growth path in EEC and in other regions as well. The investment will incur structural change, contributing the benefits of high government income, compensating to what they invested first, and create the benefit to the private sectors, and also has repercussions to employment, to create the employment. Now that's a result of the study contributed in this in this book. Anyway, my last point is that in this chaotic world today and the near futures, I believe that the work of Iwan Azis, type of work he did, and the work of Iwan Azis student would remain a very crucial study to provide the real impact to economic subject and to the real policy making for the better of the people. Happy 70th anniversary, my friend.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Kanit, would you like to add additional information?
No, that's good enough. Anyway, we have been good friends for a long time, and we actually accept the same principle as I said. And then I so envy him that he has a lot of students that come today, and each of the work of your student has been contributed to the economic area and also the policy maker. That's what we always do. We are not going to do the research for research. We're doing the research for the real action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kanit. So I would like to switch to my PowerPoint. And I would like to introduce Dr. Kanit. He is both economist and practitioner. He was the chairperson of the Bank of Thailand for the Executive Committee, and he was the member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Thailand. He was the board member of the National Planning Agencies, and he also he was the chairperson of Thai Airways, but don't complain about the service of the Thai Airways because that long time ago. Okay, so switch to the PowerPoint, please. I can share from my computer as well. Okay. Okay, I would like to walk you through the summary and the main results of our studies. First, the introduction. I would like to share that Thailand is similar to other developing countries. The development progress is induced by the 5-year plan that is drafted and implemented by the National Planning Agency, or the National Economic and Social Development Council, or NESDC. And Dr. Kanit was the board member of NESDC. And the glorious period of Thailand was in 1980 and 1990s, and it was driven by the development project. It's the Eastern Seaboard Development Project implemented in the early 1980s, and it actually provide new infrastructure and also provide the incentive for the investment of the export. And if you look at the chart, on the left-hand side is the growth of Thailand, the GDP growth of Thailand before 1997 financial crisis. It was among the highest in Asia. I think it's the second highest in Asia, just second to South Korea. But after the 1997 Asian financial crisis is totally different. If you look at the right-hand side of the chart, the growth is declining, and right now it's maybe just 2% annually. So this is the initiations of the project, and the government tried to come up with the new scheme, and Dr. Khanit has been the main person of this development project. So the EEC project was drafted and was implemented. So the new infrastructure will be constructed, and also the new targeted industry will be promoted. And I think you will see the map right in my PowerPoint. This is the map. So basically, the project will be located in 3 provinces in the eastern part of Bangkok. And the project will invest in the new infrastructures like the high-speed train, high-speed railway, and new highways, new seaport, and also the new airport in this area. And new industry will be located here. So this map will show the connectivity amongst the infrastructure and the industrial parks that will host 12 targeted industry and services. So this is the introduction of the project, and my paper or our chapter will be more practical. We will not use the high-level mathematics. We just want to measure the impact of the projects in 2 dimensions. First, we want to see the impact across location or the spillover in the geographical space. And the second one, we want to measure the time dimension. We want to measure the chronicle effects of the project. So for the first one, it's actually the technique that comes from Professor Azis' class at Cornell. So we use the multi-regional input-output table. And this one, we constructed the table specifically for this project because we added the detail of the local economy for these 3 provinces. And we also have the economy of the rest of the countries. We included the structure of the 73 provinces in Thailand in this table, and we have 24 sectors. And the structure of the table is like this one, that we have the row and columns of 3 provinces with 24 sectors, and yet we have a specific account for the rest of the country, and we also include import and export or international trade in this table. And the second methodology is the dynamic CGE, and we need social accounting metrics. And actually, Professor Thorbecke is one of the founding father of this one, of this the SAM table. And we constructed the SAM table for this study, and it represents the Thai economy. And we have the structure like this one. So we have 2 data sources, and we have 2 methodology to answer 2 research questions. And the first one is the MRIO multiplier. So we have MRIO table, and we would like to measure the impact. So we just apply a simple multiplier calculation. So we use a simple calculation of the Leontief multiplier to measure the intra effect of the projects, and also the inter-provincial spillover of the project. And I think this one is follow the conventional approach that we can compute Leontief multiplier from these equations, I minus A inverse, that will give you the Leontief multiplier. But in this study, we also extended the standard calculation. We also multiply the additional production, which is delta X, with the calculation of the GDP. And we multiply the vector of the value added, the V vector, to compute GDP. So basically, this one will come up with the final answer, which is the GDP in each province that is induced by the project. And the second one is the CG model. I have limited time, but just want to share with you the standard structure of the model. And it's actually is the content of one semester class at Cornell, taught by Professor Azis. It's a CG class, and it is the model that captures the adjustment within the economy is the price endogenous adjustment. So we included all main activity in Thai economy in this model. And I would like to share the result. For the first one, we have MRIO table, and we have multipliers, and we have the actual number of the investment in 2021. And we chop the model or the table with this investment. And the results showed that the distribution of the growth, I think is equally distributed, because some of the growth will be localized. It will induce the GDP growth in these three provinces, but 30% of the GDP will be created outside the project, outside this area. And we have IO tables, we can identify which sector that will be induced outside the area. And we found that the service sectors are located outside this area, and this will be mostly influenced by the project. And for the second one, for the dynamic CG model, we use very old data, because we have just 2015 IO table, which is the official data. And we constructed the SAM table based on that IO table. And we first seriously concerned with the accuracy of the model. So we did the back testing. So we try to check that the model can represent the dynamic adjustment of the Thai economy. So we think we did very well with the calibration of the model. If you look at the blue line, which is the actual GDP of Thailand, and the blue line, which is the one that generated by the model, and our model can track the actual adjustment of the economy. And I think the discrepancy of the model, the GDP of the model and the actual one is just around 2% for most of our predictions. So I think we have the model that's good enough for our prediction. So we impose three scenarios. First, it's just the business as usual without the COVID-19 pandemic. And the second one, we include the effect from the COVID-19 pandemics. And the last one, we also included the implementation of this project. And you will see on the chart on the right-hand side that actually COVID-19, which is the second scenario, caused the economy to derail from the normal path, right? And if the EEC project is fully implemented, we will have the alternative path for Thailand. We will have the red line that surpasses the initial path, and it will induce the growth to the economies. Okay, and actually CG model generate a lot of details, like all detail in the economies, but we would like to focus on the welfare of the household. So we look at the revenues and the expenditure of the household, and the model show that if the project is fully implemented, it can increase the welfare of the household by 35% compared to the first scenarios. So we come up with two results from two methodologies, and we would like to acknowledge the limitation. Like first, we have two different models that are still disconnected. So in the future, we would like to integrate both. It can be dynamic CG model with regional SAM table. And second one, we have quite outdated data for the IO table and SAM table. So we would like to update the table later. And actually now we have more methodology. Maybe we can try like econometrical tests, or we can use like different regressions or some machine learning technique to cross-validate our results. And the last one is the incorporation of social and environmental factor that we have to extend our model to capture the cost and the benefit on society and environment. Okay, so the conclusion is here that for the first model, we show that the project can create the benefit across area, across provinces. And the second one, the project could lead the growth path of Thailand to be higher if all projects are fully implemented, it can induce more growth, and it can influence the household welfare to be around 35% higher. Okay, thank you very much. And actually, the later pages of my PowerPoint are the collection of pictures that were taken at Cornell and later, because Professor Azis always visit Bangkok, and you see a lot of the party, a lot of reunion that he usually visit Bangkok and have a dinner with us. So thank you very much. Thank you for everything, Professor Azis.
Thank you so much, Nat. That was a very wonderful presentation. So now we'll just proceed straight to the Q&A. So we have 3 questions there from the audience. First one from Harry Saldayo. Okay, so please try to make your questions as concise and as short as possible. And to whom do you want the questions to be addressed? Harry, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Harry. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, Pak Iwan Jaya Azis, and also everybody. I'm interested in the whole presentation, talking about quite range of topics. But then one question that bothers me when talking about predictions. Right now, we have plenty techniques, models, and also methods in predictions. The question is always in social science. We are talking the accuracy of predictions, because it will bring us to a situation that guides us to make decisions. And the question is about how can we rely on, how far we can rely on with all these models about predictions of the economy. That's all. Thank you very much, then.
Okay. So why don't we take all the questions first, and then the presenters can address them. So let's go to Febriandi. So the first question just now is on the predictions. How can we rely on the predictions, right? So we have seen CGE model, agent-based model, and then Prof. Ari also has the estimation model. So how can we rely on these predictions? What makes you so sure that the predictions is, can really replicate the real world? So next we have Febriandi. You can proceed with your questions. Are you there? Okay, so why don't we take from Ariel first? Ariel, Thor, William, Macy. Okay, I think Febriandi, okay, he's there. The hands are raised, but I'm not sure. Okay, so why don't we allow the speakers to address the questions that was raised just now, and how can we rely on the prediction? Okay, so so each speaker maybe roughly about 1 to 2 minutes. Prof. Ari, you can go first, or whichever speakers that want to address these issues. You have wonderful models, so how can you defend your models then?
Can I ask a question?
I can start.
Okay. Oh, okay. So Prof. Wu, yes, I didn't see the hands there. Yes, Prof. Wu. Okay, can we? Okay, let's take Prof. Wu questions as well, and then we can answer those 2 questions together. Prof. Wu, please proceed.
We have heard 3 excellent presentations, all inspired by Pak Iwan, but those questions that he talked about were important questions during the time that they were done. So building on the previous question about predictions, I'd like to ask Pak Iwan, what does he see to be the biggest three challenges for Southeast Asia and Indonesia in particular in the next 20 years, largely because the prosperity that came with globalization is being threatened by a new Cold War. And we have now the further difficulties of dealing with climate change. Indonesia, being an island nation, faces rising sea levels as well as big biodiversity destruction. So I'd like to know, now that you have done such excellent work on things that happened in the past, during the time that they were happening, I would like to seek your guidance on what to do about the future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Wu. I think that hardest questions is meant for Prof. Iwan. So the other three presenters, we can answer the first questions on how can we rely on the predictions. So any of the presenters you want to go ahead and address the questions, just proceed.
I can give it a shot first.
Okay, Yuri, go on.
I want to connect this to what I learned from Professor Iwan, but I'm going to express it using my own words, because I think Professor Iwan is a believer in empirical economics or empirical real science. And what that means is we need not just the evidence in terms of the data and econometric modeling and so forth, but also the theoretical models from which we would derive the research question and hypothesis. So this is not, I'm completely answering that question about prediction, but I would say that we are different from, in particular, computer scientists, right? Where it's taking, 100% approach, purely from the data point of view with no theory at all. I think this is a defining distinction between us, regional scientists and economists, and computer scientists, where we actually really value the role of a theory before we can actually make prediction about the future. Let me just stop there.
Okay, so the question is difficult and challenging, right? How can we rely on predictions? Yuri had made his case there. Nat, Ari?
May I answer this one? But yeah, it is honestly my personal concern as well. And it depends on many factors. It depends on the overall framework. It depends on the assumptions. It also depends on your own interpretation. So I think, like I mentioned in the acknowledgement of my limitations, you have to update the data. You have to try other methodologies. Maybe you have to try other approaches that are totally different and check the results. Dr. Kanit, would you like to share?
I would share the view from the policymaker. I'm not the pure academic for the past 15 years, but moving towards to be the policymaker in any sense. What do we need from that kind of prediction, empirical predictions, Iwan's type of study, is that we need to get the information to frame the direction. It's not the accuracies of the numerical number. That's not much quite essential. From the time past, we refine the data and we get the better solution. But anyway, when we look forward to do something in the future as a policymaker, you need to frame the way people thinking, the frame policy thinking. The first thing to do is that, are we going to do it? Yes or no? That's what the predictions or the calculation would say so. It says too risky, don't go ahead with that. And not only the frame what to do, yes or no. Somehow we can catch the fish. that would be able to do if there's 30% or as Yuri said, if it's about 30 to 40% of catching up of the corruption, then you can be succeeded to do the thing. That's numerical number of 30, 40 to 50% is quite essential for us to frame the policy. How much we gonna do with that? So that would be my simple answers. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Khalid. All right, so since due to the limitations of time, why don't we roll all these hard questions to Prof. Iwan to answer? Prof, question number one was, how can we rely on the predictions? And then questions number two from Prof. Wu is, given all these challenges that are happening, fragmentation, geo-fragmentations, war, climate change. So how, building up the questions on the predictions, it makes the predictions becoming more challenging. So how can we address that? Or like what, in the future, how do you see these challenges going to shape the economy? I think more or less, I think that was Prof. Wu questions, right? Okay, so yes, Prof. Prof. Iwan, is your turn now?
Is my voice audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm very happy to hear about the discussion here, and including the one that Wing raised. I think all of us here who's attending this session knows all these upcoming challenges, the ongoing as well as the upcoming challenges. But I think there are one thing that does not change. It is relevant now, it was relevant before, and it will continue to be relevant in the future. And that is, everything has to be looked at from the perspective of what does it mean for the human welfare. So it doesn't matter whether we're talking about technology, artificial intelligence, or we're talking about climate change or environment. At the end of the day, the last point of question that we have to ask is, what does it mean for the human welfare? So I would say that it doesn't matter what models we are using, whatever issues that we are dealing with. At the end, we have to ask one fundamental question: what does it mean for the human welfare? What is it? And when we're talking about human welfare, of course, it's multidimensional. It's not only about the skill, it's not only about ability to survive with shelter and food, but also about the health issues and so forth. So yes, there are many changes. What happened in the 50s, I think Erik wrote a wonderful article about that, how development economics have evolved from the 50s until now. So there are things that are changing, but one thing that does not change is really the ultimate goal is to measure everything that we are discussing in terms of implication on the human welfare. So that will be my general answers. And about the question about forecasting and so forth, we all have to understand that model is simplification of reality. So it's not really something that, in fact, I remember one of my former colleagues said, model is to be used, but not to be trusted. Of course, that doesn't really, reflect 100% truth, but as long as we are aware that what we are trying to do is trying to simplify the reality. So, and I really glad that the discussion is moving towards issues that are relevant today and in the future. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, thank you very much to all the presenters for the answers given to the questions raised, as well as to Prof. Iwan as well, to sum up the main key things in answering the question just now is to prioritize on the welfare. It can be skill, it can be jobs, employment, but whatever policies that whatever predictions the model is saying, forecasting that we're doing, ultimately in the end, in our heart, it should be the welfare of the people. And that is always what Prof. Iwan emphasized to all the students. And I want to reiterate here. And the second thing is that models can be used as the guidance, and like Dr. Khalid said, but ultimately you have to see what is the ultimate impact to the people. So it can be used as the guidance, but you can't 100% trust the model itself. Now we have come to the end of the presentations, to the discussions here. Thank you so much to all the audience, and I shall pass the next program to Budy.
Yes, thank you, Noor. We move to the next program. On behalf of Professor Iwan's friend, we now would like to introduce the edited book. First of all, Yuri and I, as the editor of the book, would like to express our gratitude to all contributors and others who make this book possible. We also apologize to those who were not given the chance to contribute. Before I introduce the book, let me invite Yuri to present the book to Prof. Iwan. Yuri.
Thank you, Professor Budy. My Professor Iwan Azis, today we have the pleasure of honoring you, not just with our words, but with this book, which is a testament, to your stellar career and the many lives you have touched. This book, contributed, by those who have had the honor of working alongside you, celebrates your enduring dedication and passion. Thank you for everything, Professor Iwan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Budy.
Thank you. So now I would like to share my screen about the book. So then, for those who haven't seen the book, these are some highlights of the book. The book, the title is the Indonesian Economy and the surroundings, the surrounding regions in the 21st century. It is now available in Springer. This is the link. It's also available in Amazon. The book, at least by now, not yet an open access book, but during the event, during current webinar, the introduction chapter can be downloaded from the following links. So take a picture of this slide, and later you could download the introductory chapter. The book consists of 16 chapters plus 3 forewords. The 3 forewords are from Professor Emil Salim, Iwan Jaya Azis, a multidimensional economist, from Professor Erik Thorbecke, my personal and professional interaction with Iwan Jaya Azis, and from Professor Pangestu, Iwan Jaya Azis, a true Renaissance man and a friend. The foreword are free to be downloaded at Springer, so that's something that you could download it anytime. So the book consists of 3 parts. After a note from Yuri and I about Mas Iwan, there are 7 chapters on the Indonesian economy, started from a chapter by Gunawan Wicaksono, Kirin Daunahi, Clifford Weinmer on impact of monetary policy on consumer demand of high and low income group in Indonesia. Chris Silver in University of Florida contributes the 2nd chapter in this part related to rapid urbanization in Indonesia. And you have heard Professor Ari Kuncoro chapter presented in the previous discussion. Professor Halhill and Dr. Doni Pasaribu discuss the Indonesian resource curse, economic and environmental dimension in this book. Arianto and myself discussed the challenge and economic consequences of climate change policy in Indonesia. Professor Armida, Professor Arif Yusuf, and Victor Permana contribute a chapter on the status and trend of Indonesian province sustainability. And the final chapter in this part is contributed by Professor Bambang Brojonegoro, Dr. Amalia, Firman, and Rasi, discussing the impact of the 2018 Asian Games in Indonesia. The second part of the book is about the Southeast Asian economy and the region. We were glad that William Thorbecke and Atsuyuki Kato write a chapter on Indonesian economy in global supply chains at the age of COVID. Professor Takahiro Akita and Professor Hiko Miyata wrote a chapter on education expenditure inequality comparing Indonesia and the Philippines. So those two are very nice comparison paper. And you also have heard Nat and Dr. Kanit present their work in the previous discussion. The final chapter in this part, written by Professor Mari Pangestu, Paul Breton, and Vicky Mutai, discussing climate change, food security, and trade, navigating through multiple crises. So that was the fourth chapter on Southeast Asian economy and the region. The final chapter are on the method of regional economic analysis. You have listened to Yuri's method, how to implement agent-based model on simulating corruption and incomplete information. The other chapter in that part is by Jati Waluyo, Dr. Jati Waluyo, Javier Pires Burgo, Yuri, Yi Hao Min, and Kiran Donahi. This is on University Partnered Economic Development Initiative and minimum wage policies under different assumption of competition and scale economy. The third chapter in this part is by Professor John Kim, lesson learned from managing transportation demand for suburban area of Washington, D.C., a lesson learned that is important for many cities in Southeast Asia that currently growing very fast. And the last chapter is on complex system approach by Professor Haider Khan. So that is in general the content of the book, and hopefully you could have access to the book soon and enjoy the book. Before I invite Professor Emil Salim to share his impression of Professor Iwan, I would like to inform all audience, all participants in this webinar that after Professor Emil, I will randomly invite five representatives from the audience to share their thoughts about Professor Iwan with a maximum only 2 minutes each. Please now raise your hand if you would like to be one of these representatives. Lydia will record and help me pick the five. For those not selected and anyone else who would like to congratulate Professor Iwan on his achievement or express your thoughts about him, please use the chat or the question box so you could write whatever impression that you would like to send. At the end of this program, we will print this message and send them to Professor Iwan. So please don't hesitate to write whatever you would like to say about Professor Iwan in the chat or the question box now. But Now I'm inviting Professor Emil to share his impression of Mas Iwan. Pak Emil, we are glad that you have recovered well and are in good condition. The Zoom meeting is yours for about 10 minutes. Professor Emil.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First, allow me to express my congratulations to Iwan on his 17th birthday. It seems to be old, the age of 70, but looking to the facts that there are many that are living passing the year 70 years, I remember a sister of Pak Mitro, Sumitro Joyo Hadikusumo, has reached the age of 112 years. So 70 years is still the age of young. And Iwan must continue to work hard, not to stop working and fighting for the good of the country. And this is important because what I've learned from Iwan is many things. Iwan is not only an economist that writes well and writes a lot on regional economics, finance, development, and so on, but he also shows his great interest to see the facts of economic development in the country. Almost every year, Iwan visits Indonesia, not to the tourist resorts, but to the islands, to East Indonesia, to Morotai, to Nusa Tenggara East, to many places that usually the tourists don't go. Why does Iwan visit Indonesia every year? Why does he go to the regions that tourists never and seldom goes? It is because of his desire to know what is ticking in the Indonesian economy in the region. And I make time to see Iwan before he leaves Indonesia every year after his visit to the regions to ask, to discuss what is his finding. And surprisingly, Indonesia in the field, Indonesia in the east is not Indonesia of Java. Then Iwan tells us the difficulties that are faced in many regions of Indonesia, where one usually the regional governments prefer to build buildings, beautiful offices, Bupati Kabupaten offices, beautiful buildings for many departments of offices of regional that are in the regions. But what about the situation of the schools, of the markets, of the things that the public needs? Morotai is a region that is famous because of General MacArthur. It has a large airport. It has a beautiful hotel, and yet it is empty because we don't know yet how to use these facilities. So Morotai, with all the facility of airport and hotel, is unutilized, leaving the youth unemployed. Then he goes to the region of East Nusa Tenggara. There he went to Southeast Nusa Tenggara. What does he find? Besipe, a small region where the land of the people are taken by the regional government. And the Adat people who owns this land are still, since 1983, till now, fighting to get back the rights of having the land that they initially owned and is taken away by the regional government. And so Iwan goes to the region, not as a tourist, not just visit and talk and see, but to observe, to watch, and find out what makes Indonesia tick. Why is East Indonesia not growing? Why is Nusa Tenggara East, Maluku, Papua, Sulawesi West, why are these regions not growing at all since we start the development? And the key answer is simple: transportation, communication, and the flow of goods that depends on transportation, which is not available because ships requires cargoes. But on the other hand, cargoes require ship. How to close this? How to cut this? Iwan observes, Iwan worries, and Iwan tells me many things that are happening, especially in the regions where Indonesia suffers poverty, disease. Then we have the stunting in East Nusa Tenggara, but also in the other parts of East Indonesia. Poverty, low education, bonus demography that supposedly will push on the development is absent because the bonus demography is not going well. The students are lagging behind. Education is low. From the elementary school, secondary school, and so on, teachers are usually absent, not teaching regularly. Efforts of these, why is it happening? Because one is fighting for survival of life. And when the soil is not fertile, when the rain is not coming, agriculture, food production will fail. And when the people fail, how can they go on with the normal task of teaching, of working, if they cannot yet have entry to the basic needs of food because of its absence, because of the irregularity of the rainfall, because of the beginning of the climate change? All this, Iwan observed. He doesn't tell us the things in a negative sense. He watched, he noticed, then we talk. What can be done? It is in that context that we, intellectuals, those who are graduates from the universities, can do something, at least what Iwan likes to see. Use the telecommunication Zoom facility to allow students at Cendrawasih University in Papua to gain the knowledge of those who are teaching in the University of Indonesia through distance teaching. Why cannot that be done? Why are we in Jakarta happy with what we are enjoying now, but forgetting that our friends, our brothers in east of Indonesia are lacking teaching material, readings, discussions, intellectual dialogue in which we can participate. But yet, we, as university teachers, professors, we have, of course, our meetings, Dewan Guru Besar and so on. But when I follow the Dewan Guru Besar conference meetings, I'm sad to watch that all what has been discussed is what we, the teaching staff, needs for advance of the career. But what is missing is discussing what the people needs. And that is raised by Iwan every time when he goes to Indonesia and he returns back. I feel the need to talk with him. And every time when I talk with him, my heart trembles. Iwan teach me Indonesia still needs a lot to study, to learn. And from that point of view, Iwan is our teacher in the way how to understand, to develop East Indonesia, Indonesia in general, from poverty through the strength of its people. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Emil, for a very moving note. And yeah, we are happy to see you recover, and hopefully you will be in a good condition always. Thank you. Before I give the floor to Mas Iwan, I would like to invite just about 5 people to represent in the audience, including those in the panel, to if they would like to express their thought about Iwan. I was in chat with the Dean of Faculty of Economics, University of Indonesia. So I will let the Dean to give his note on Iwan. Please, go.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Pak Budy, for the time. And yeah, I'm very surprised today. And then, yes, I have the privilege to meet Pak Iwan through his book and through the esteemed faculty member who speak very highly about the Pak Iwan. But my personal first meeting with Pak Iwan was 10 years ago, when I was the head of the undergraduate program in economics and arranging Pak Iwan to be part of our visiting lecture, and then we designed class to with the Pak Iwan to teach. Before the COVID, we already designed both offline and online, and I think this is the first meeting with Pak Iwan, and my impression is that Pak Iwan is very dedicated, very passionate, and excellent of the lecture. And most of students, the young people and the young undergraduate student is very love Pak Iwan. Even though the assignment is very many assessment every week, but this is challenge the new student and the young people to explore the beyond the boundaries. This is even though there are many assignment, presentation, hard work, but student enjoy it. This is the impression of the student. And yes, that's why today I'm not so surprised, because even though Pak Iwan with the young generation, there is a gap, for example, more than about the 50 years, but Pak Iwan still can communicate with the young people, talk with the young people, encourage them to explore the boundaries. That's why this is like the great of Pak Iwan, to always encourage the student. And this is today is not surprised that many of former students hold him as the highest reward, and even launched the book to honor Pak Iwan. And I think this is I think the Pak Iwan in for example in the pesantren, Pak Iwan is like the great kiai, because the many santri or many students love it, and there is nothing more happy moment for the teacher than to be loved by their student. And once again, happy anniversary, Pak Iwan, and great and continue to be the great teacher for every generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Teguh. Now I would like to invite somebody that a bit distant, Ibu Nino from Kompas, Ibu Nino Mardiana Pambudi. The floor is yours.
Oke, ya, selamat pagi di Indonesia, di Jakarta sekarang masih still more in the morning. First, I want to congratulate Prof. Iwan and the book team for the launching of the book. And it is my great opportunity to include me in this event. My first encounter with Mas Iwan was when I was still a very young journalist in Kompas newspaper in Palmerah, Jakarta Selatan. I hope you don't mind, I still call you Mas Iwan as an honor to someone we respect. In Kompas, we respect someone, and then we call him or her as Mbak or Mbak, Mas or Mbak. Mas Iwan came to Kompas to share his knowledge and vision several times before he went to US. But the first time I met him, what influenced me up to now was his warning that when we talk about development, we never forget the externalities. We met in Kompas at the end of 1990s or at the early 1990s. At that time, Indonesia economy grew very fast, but at the cost of losing our forest to plantation, especially the hutan tanaman industry. In hutan tanaman industry, the monoculture plantation, forest plantation, and to palm oil plantation. We feel the impact now in line with the climate change, like a landslide in every part of Indonesia. The last time was in Western Sumatra because the upper part of the mountain was already transferred into palm plantation. Thank you, Mas Iwan, and I hope your personal standpoint that human being is always the center of development, whatever the situation and advance of technology, will influence a lot more, not only the Indonesian, but many person everywhere. It's very important to remember that the human being is should be the center of development or the advancement of technology. Thank you for this kind of opportunity.
Thank you, Mbak Nino. The next one, I would like to move to somebody that knows Mas Iwan and has been a student of him as well. Maria Monica from Singapore.
Hello, Professor Azis. Long time no see. I told Pak Budy I couldn't make my remark because I would cry, like I did 5 or 7 years ago. But so nice to see you online. In short, Professor Azis saved me from my academic career. I wouldn't be where I am right now without him. He kept me very humble and grounded. I remember at the end of my dissertation stage, he would come to my office room and he would say, "Can you explain about your paper?" And I explained, my game theoretical paper. I said, no. Don't use the word equilibrium, and I will not accept that. So I still remember to this day. So whenever I write papers now, articles, I remember not to use all these economic jargons. And also he inspired me with his passions of going to regions. I thought that I was the person who liked to go to region the most among my colleagues, but he beat me in a totally different level. I still keep going to region, and I still remember you, Professor Azis, whenever I go to region. I'm not the only one, and I have a mentor like you to continue my passion to be going to regions to really see what's happening on the ground. So we all look up to you. You inspired us, not only as an economist, but also as a human being, and for me also as an artist. So congratulations, and hope you stay healthy and productive.
Thank you, Maria. I would like to invite somebody from my place in Australia, Hal Hill. Maybe Hal, could you give your note about Iwan? Because I believe he had a lot of influence in our program. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Bud. Iwan, apa kabar? Dan selamat hari ulang tahun ke-70. It's really great to see you, and I was delighted to have the opportunity to contribute to this Festschrift untuk menghormati Iwan. Hello also to many friends on the screen, including, of course, Ibu Irina. Iwan, I've known you for a long time. I think it must be about at least 35 plus years. I first got to know you well when we were organizing the regional development project in Indonesia across provinces. And I was a real neophyte in the area. I didn't really know much about regional economics. And so I turned to the person who does know a lot about it, and that was you. And you kindly came to the Canberra conference and really gave the overview paper setting the scene. And that was really useful. So since then, we've kept in touch a lot. We correspond a lot, and it's always a pleasure interacting with you. I've learned a lot from you. I admire your scholarship and your friendship and counsel. So congratulations and thanks very much. Let me just mention one other thing. I think it's quite important, if I may say so, Indonesia, I think, still flies below the international radar screen in many ways. Maybe that's a good thing, but sometimes I do worry a little bit as an outsider. Perhaps it's almost too far below the radar screen. And I think, Iwan, you've played a very important role as an international academic. You're based in Cornell, but going back and forth. And I think you played a very important role in elevating Indonesia's deserved prominence in, international economic and global development discussions. So thank you for that also. And final point, saya setuju dengan mari Pangestu. Iwan, you might be 70, but we won't let you retire just yet. You have to keep on going. We need you. The world needs you. So you can have a holiday, but tapi jangan boleh pensiun yet. And thank you also, by the way, to Budy and Yuri for organizing this fine volume. Terima kasih banyak and all the best.
Yes, thank you, Hal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I transfer this Zoom to Mas Iwan, I would like to check with Karen Donahi. Are you available to give your note about Iwan?
Certainly.
Karen.
Iwan and I were fellow students in the regional science program, and we shared a common Stan Shansky. And Stan was a very intense lecturer, and the board actually it was a very small blackboard in a lecture room with equations. And one of our fellow instructors, David Lewis, used to say that Stan Shansky proved by erasure. He put so many things on the board, he would be erasing with one hand as he was writing with the other. And it was devil take the hindmost for most of us students. We were furiously trying to capture all the algebra that Stan Shansky was writing up on the board. And what impressed us all was that Iwan was able to see in advance where Stan was going with something. And he would actually catch the mistakes that Stan was making as he was putting them up on the board. And we were always 3 or 4 equations behind where the development was going. But Iwan was so astute that he could see in advance where things were going. So we always looked up to him as somebody who had a very good take on the development of a subject matter. And in his final year of scholarship in the regional science program, Iwan was asked to teach a course on planning economics. And among the students sitting in the audience was the chairman of the department, Sid Salzman, who was taking careful notes because he was going to teach the course after Iwan finished. And so Iwan not only went on to teach many important courses in our program in regional science and in planning, which were made an indelible impression upon the students who were fortunate enough to take those courses. But from the earliest days, he was vital in driving the development of the curriculum and laying down a path for those who would follow. And so I'm very grateful to have been a fellow student of Iwan's, a colleague of students, and I still benefit today from his wise counsel, and I wish him all the best in the days remaining. So thank you, Budy and Yuri, for putting together this wonderful event and for editing a terrific volume, a great tribute to a great regional scientist and regional economist. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. So now we are in the last state of the program. Mas Iwan, the Zoom is yours. Give us your final say about you yourself and about what you think, whatever you would like to say. The floor is yours. You are still muted, Mas.
Oh. Am I muted?
Yeah, no.
No, I
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Budy, but for sure I'm not going to talk about myself, definitely. But first of all, I mean, you know, I'm lying if I'm not having this feeling of being honored and privileged, being recognized of whatever I've been doing. And like I'm sure many other people, when we are doing things, we didn't really think about whether we are going to get the recognition or not, you know. So it's in a way it's rather surprising for me, but I'm also sorry, Budy and Yuri, to spoil your plan, because I was told that you plan to make it a secret. But this is the problem of the 21st century technology, because it was one of my students in Europe, actually, who sent me the link from the internet about the book, and that shocked me. So the first reaction was absolutely shocked for me, that I didn't expect that someone or some people are trying to sort of recognize my work by publishing this book and so on. But not long after that, after my feeling of shock is, you know, dissipating, I started to feel very honored and very privileged of, you know, being recognized for whatever I've been doing. So that's point number one. And point number two is that the meaning of all this to me, and I think some of the speakers mentioned about it, is that it really put me pressure that I should do more. I should study more. I should do things more carefully, because now I realize that what I'm doing, what I'm writing, what I'm saying may have been sort of heard and followed by others. And that makes me feel very careful in terms of what I'm going to write and what I'm going to say, because I didn't expect that it's going to be, you know, impactful. So thank you very much for everyone, not only for Budy and Yuri, who initiated this event, but also for all the authors, including those authors who were not given space in the book, because I was told by Budy that there are many other people who wants to contribute in the article. Thanks to them too. But of course, I have to thank most of all is students. I think many of us here are teachers. We have to admit that we learn a lot from students. We learn a lot from teaching. It's not necessarily about the subject, but how to sort of interact with other people. And the most important thing is how to ask the right question, and also how to make other people understand in a way that not only we understand, but everybody else understand. And this is the point that Emil was raising, actually, because when we go, at least in my experience, when we go to the region and we talk to people who has completely different lifestyle from our lifestyle, I always use the analogy, it's like their mindset is AM radio signal, whereas ours may be FM. So it doesn't match here. And that is, to me, the most important challenge for researchers, especially researchers who are doing all this field work, trying to reconcile this gap. And one easy way to do it is by try to live with them, try to see 24 hours a day, what are they doing, what are they feeling, and so forth. Because too many researchers always prepare beforehand the questionnaire based on what they believe important for those people or those regions, without really understanding what is actually in the mind of those people, what are actually the challenges and so on. So even for the questionnaire, we need to go to the field, because most of the researchers are preparing the questionnaire and then they go to the field. But in preparing the questionnaire itself, it has to be sort of, compatible with their mindset and so forth. So all these things that I've been doing, actually, it's nothing special, because to me, it's very easy. If we really want to understand what is behind the wall, just go behind the wall, as simple as that. But I am a little bit surprised that apparently this kind of a simple approach has been recognized, and thanks to all of you, especially to Budy and Yuri. And last point, I never imagined that someone is going to write book like this for my 70th birthday, because I thought in my life I've been writing several times for several people when they reach 70. And I know some of those people are here in the session. I've been writing about, them and so forth. I never imagined that someone is going to write about me, but I guess that's a sign that I'm old now. So thanks again. Bye.
Thank you, Mas, for your note. And with that, I will close our formal program. But I believe if you still want to write a note, you could use the chat and the question in which we will print after the program. Everyone, thank you very much for your participation, and hope we could keep contributing to the development of Indonesia and the region, and for the better of human life. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Budy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mas. Thank you, Mas.
Thanks, Budy and Yuri, and congratulations again, Iwan. Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pak Budy. Thank you, Pak Yuri. Congratulations, Pak Iwan.
All the best.
Erina.
Thanks.
Miss you, Bu.
Thanks.
Selamat Mas Iwan, semoga terus produktif dengan tulisan-tulisan dan penelitiannya.